look back at spring practice, just over those 15 or whatever, and where do you want to see the biggest leap ball game?
Well, I just think, foundational understanding of vocabulary, what words mean, how to line up, what's a 2x2 and a 3x1 formation, what are an inside zone play to the right or to the left, how we're going to communicate. Certainly the guys have done a great job throughout the summer, just kind of digesting the things that we taught them in the spring and building on that. And I think as you work through camp, the biggest thing is just the precision in the detail, the ability to execute consistently, play in after, one play at a time. And so guys are working hard towards that, but that's why you need practice. We need every second, every walkthrough, every installation meeting, every film review. We need it all to make sure that the precision in the detail is where we want it to be headed into the first game.
Pat was pretty bullish on the offensive line at Big Ten Media Days, and you said you got about 11 guys that are sort of in the mix there. I wonder what you make of that unit and what are the sort of things you're looking for guys to separate?
First thing, I think they're incredibly well coached. I think Coach Tabaka, Colin, Matt, they do a fantastic job. They're excellent teachers, great motivators. The players love them, but they're hard on them. And the players appreciate that because they want to be coached and they want to get better. And I know the entire group feels that way, And so first off, I give them a lot of credit. Secondly, I do think there's depth there. There's competition there. We have the first full day of pads tomorrow, so I think it's a little bit early to really tell you kind of where it lays and who's where. And it's always important to cross-train guys that can play both sides, inside out, snap, because you just don't know what the season will bring you. So Coach Tabaka is doing an incredible job of that. We're cross-training guys at a lot of different spots. There's certainly experience in the room, guys that have played a lot of football. And so we expect them, to play well, and that'll be important for us. Every game that we play, that the offensive line plays well. They know that. They understand the task ahead. So, but they're doing a nice job. They're working hard. They're getting better. There's still some installation. They'll start to slow down relative to the O-line. The run schemes get fewer and fewer, certain situational things. But and then you really start to see, the guys that really know it, can master it, can handle the different things that our defense presents, which Coach Rossi and his staff do an incredible job. We got great players and a lot of challenging things, which is awesome for us to see every day in practice. So they're working hard, and I love the kids, and I think their coach is fantastic. So it's a good group.
Nick, what does Alessio do best, and what would you most like to see from him in the next few weeks?
I think his character is outstanding. That's what I would tell you. I think he's got tremendous character. He's a great kid. His parents have done a really nice job. This is an awesome guy, and what a great place to start. You can talk about being a quarterback in the Big Ten. And so there's physical traits there. There's things that we like that way. But what a great kid. And he's a joy to coach. He wants to be coached. He likes to be coached, and he gets upset when you don't coach him. And so those are the things that I love about the kid. I love him. I love coaching him. Coach McNulty, Morgan, done an awesome job with him. But he shows up every day the same guy. And that's hard to do, as you all know. You guys all have jobs. It's like he brings it every day. He's ready to go. And I love that about the kid.
Is there something he's working on now where you see improvement every day?
I think situational awareness, is still a young player. He has had experience in the games, which is great for him. But this isn't a double-digit starter. It's not like he's started 15, 20 career games. So there's learning that is occurring, and he's embracing that. And so some situational things, awareness on the different down and distances, clock situations, field position situations. He can't get enough of that. And he does awesome. He learns, he applies it. He doesn't make the same mistake twice. And so his progression is as expected, and he's doing awesome. Yeah, he's doing great.
From an offensive standpoint, when you do put the pads on, what's that transition like in terms of, I guess, seeing more about retention and what the guys maybe carried over? Do you get a better gauge when pads are on and when everything gets a little more live?
Yeah, it's real football with consequences, So yes, for sure. I think it reveals people in this sport when you put the pads on. That's our sport. This is contact tackle football, So, there's obviously modifications in practice relative to how often we take guys to the ground and those types of things. But you find out a lot when, guys are getting thudded up and tackled, and Coach Rossi and the staff and the defensive players are punching at the ball. You find out the guys that can take care of the football. You find out the guys that play behind their pads. You find out the guys that can play downhill, which is what we're looking for. And so I don't think there's any doubt. The first couple of days are always a heavy emphasis on, alignment, assignment, technique, communication, the things that you have to handle to even get going, but yeah, no doubt. When they put the pads on, you find out who can play football well, which is certainly important for us. Sir?
Does it get talked about enough on offense? Because usually you hear that, they put the pads on, they can hit somebody.
Yeah.
Well, it's like everybody thinks defense first.
Yeah, that's a big pet peeve of mine. It's like in recruiting sometimes, like I don't think this guy's a defensive player. That bothers me. It's like the same requirements for a 3 technique as for a left guard. We still want these guys to go knock the heck out of people. So, yes, yeah, that's important, that they play behind their pads, and so absolutely, the courage, the toughness, the willingness to go do it, to stick your face in there and do it multiple times, one play after another. And so we're looking for the same things, a great middle linebacker probably could be a good tailback, from a physicality standpoint, from a toughness, from all the things that we're looking for here under Fitz and at this place for sure.
What have you seen from some of the younger guys and wide receiver, tight end? Tap seems to be in a good spot. You have Savory, Whiting seem to make some noise. What have you seen from some of those young
Learning, growing. I do think there's competition that's going on in those rooms. Jaden certainly has been somebody that's been just continuing to get better. I think we all saw some of the movement and body control ability in spring. What I've been proud of him is I think he's playing more physical. He is, to the things that you guys just asked, he is playing behind his pads and trying to become a more dependable, reliable blocker, which is a normal transition. Waz has done an awesome job. Jaden has some, catching ability that maybe Waz never had as a player. Waz will probably tell you that. But Waz certainly was tough, and his players played tough. And so I have seen progress with Jaden from an ability to block the C and D gap, which is important, so that you can be treated like a tight end and not just like a wideout. And so Jaden has made strides for sure. And the wideouts they're coming along. There's a lot of competition in that room, guys that have ability for sure, but just the consistency, I think that's for every position. We're 5 practices in, we had a run through today, so there's still a lot of competition and snaps to be had and plays to be, made for those guys to kind of see where they're going to be for the opener. But knowing it's a long season, we're going to need them all. So they're all going to have to be ready to go.
How will that process go? I assume at this point it's kind of like full menu with Alessio and then the offense. There'll be a point where you sharpen it down.
Sure.
What will that process look like? Are you looking forward to sort of learning more about what Alessio can do,
Yeah.
what he likes, what you like for him? That whole condensing process?
Yeah, we are evaluating that every minute of every day, and not just for him, but certainly, him to start is what does he do best, and we have a much better idea after spring than we did, before. And we know more after 5 practices. You're still making sure that your menu of things that you have to execute for the entirety of the year. We play different teams with different schemes, different personnels. And so you have to make sure you have enough volume to be able to handle the different things without feeling like the guys are learning new plays every week. There'll always be game plan specific things that you think are best to attack that team that week. But we're trying to build a menu that can handle the different fronts and coverages and people that we're going to go against. But we're constantly evaluating what the guys do best. And certainly the quarterback's a big piece. The O-line's a big piece of that. Which skill guys, what personnel groupings do we want to be in? Where do we want to put those guys? What routes, what run schemes? We talk about that every day, every minute. So that's an ongoing thing. And we want the guys to play fast. We want them to know what to do, know how to do it, and go like heck. So that's what we're trying to get to.
I'm sure in some ways you'd love to have a whole bunch of guys who've been with you for 4 years, but when you're starting from scratch as a play caller, is there a fun challenge to sort of trying to figure out what the pieces even are before you put them together, I guess?
I enjoy the challenge every year I've coached, regardless of the returners or new guys, or I just think it's awesome. I love football. I love coaching. And so I don't ever look at it that way, like, oh, we're in a great place because we have so many guys coming back, or man, it's just new. I mean, there's just a different challenge every year on getting that group to play their best and trying to find a way to win the games. And so I'm having a blast every day. But I've tried to do that every year I've coached. There's some days it's not the most fun, Joe does a great job. But we're having a blast. Kids have been awesome. Staff's phenomenal. Fitz is incredible. It's been great. Yeah.
The GoPro that Alessio wears, how much can that elevate what he sees from the film room? Because perspective, I feel like for him to have that, how much of an advantage is that?
There's a combination there. There's certainly a vision element. You can see where he turned his head. We have stripes down the helmet, so we can see where his eyes are looking at when he takes the snap. There's also a lot of things that we can hear, so there's a mic there, so you can hear how he communicated at the line of scrimmage or in the huddle or wherever we're doing. So there's a lot of, we're always searching for the best way to teach. That's what we do as coaches. We try to teach, and so it's a good teaching tool. And we use it when we feel like it's appropriate, and it can help the guys play better and understand the importance of certain coaching points, or where they should put their eyes or what they should be saying. And we hear the quarterback. We also hear the other guys too. Now we can't hear the wide receiver that's 30 yards away, but we can hear what the O-line said or didn't say or whatever those things may be. So we're constantly looking for an edge there. And Fitz is always pushing us to do that and provides us with the resources to do it. So it's been great. It's been good.
The running back room, you obviously brought in Cam, you got a chance to see him
Yeah.
in the spring, wondering how he's kind of progressed through this, and behind him, or fighting with him,
Yeah.
I guess the question is, what are you seeing from maybe some of the other guys like Tullis and Clarizio, and how much competition is there right now in that group?
There's a lot of competition. And I think Cam's learning every day. He's played a lot of football. He's had a lot of carries. He understands some of the intricacies of run schemes for sure. And the things that he was, asked to do, there's carryover. He was well coached at UConn, and their staff did a nice job for sure. And so there's carryover. There's only so many run plays. There's zone plays inside and outside. There's gap plays. So there's only so many run schemes. And so he certainly has a familiarity and an ability to handle those things. I think some of the intricacies, whether it be protection or route running, he's just stacking days like the rest of the group and getting better and better. And he's doing a great job. And Coach Spalding and Grover, have both played the position not too long ago. They understand the importance of the details of that position. I think sometimes that gets interpreted, that maybe running backs and, there's not a lot to it. There's tons of detail relative to the reads, the protections, the routes. And Coach Spalding does an awesome job, and Grover, they do a great job together of coaching those guys. And I think there's a lot of young players that are pushing for time, And I think Marv has done a great job. Marv Parrish has been fantastic, really good in blitz pickup. And so he's growing and getting better every day. You mentioned Tullis, BT has showed up in some blitz pickup situations. Jazz, there's a lot of competition, and that's a position that always you need depth. You need to have depth throughout the year in our league, as physical as the defenses are.
Of size and style of the guys?
But yeah, there's a mix there. There's some bigger guys, and there's some guys that I wouldn't say are small, but maybe not as big. That's probably an easy way to say it. And so the more you do well, the harder you are to defend. So we're constantly looking at that. And so Zion's another kid that certainly has flashed and showed some things that we like. So they're all working hard, and Dev's doing a great job.
Following up on that, how many running backs would you like to play? Would you rather have a bell cow guy? Would you rather have two complement each other? Or a bunch of guys who do all kinds of
Number one, we want to win, and so whatever combination that is to help that. I think there's a longevity piece with the running backs. I think the game, you see a little bit more of multiple guys trying to split some load, some load management or whatever you want to call it, just the carries. The guys, you don't want the guys to have 25 carries in a game. I know that was common, not too long ago, but it's a little tougher. You look around, there's not many guys that are doing that. So I think it's good for their group to have multiple guys that can carry, but they got to earn that, And so we don't have a preference one way or the other. If it's one person and that's their, the way we need to go, then that's what it is. But I think there's multiple guys that deserve to have the ball in their hands, and that'll help everybody stay fresh, stay healthy, to just get to the season, the way you want and feel like you're full speed each game.
That's your own game. Obviously, have some different sort of skill sets. So moving forward at QB, would you like to have a variety in that room, or would you rather have guys that are more similar than not, sort of stacked up there?
I mean, we certainly have a profile at every position that we're looking for, but we're looking for great football players, and they come, especially at quarterback. I think, at that position, maybe more so than others, they come in all shapes, sizes, speeds, arm talents. It's just hard to explain that, It's like that's the one position. You look around the NFL, you see the left guard for each team, they all look about the same. You see the Z receiver, they all look kind of similar. You look at the quarterbacks, you got such a wide range of skill sets, of heights, of movement abilities. And so there's such an importance on decision making at that position that some guys, there's been plenty of guys that run 5.0 40 that were great quarterbacks, and some guys run 4.4 and they're good too. So we'll take them all, whatever's helps us win. And we're capable and have experience of coaching different guys. The last two guys I was fortunate to be around with, Jalen and Ty, those guys were completely different, and they were much different than Mike, and so you guys have all seen that. There's just different styles. We're just looking for the guy that plays a position the right way, leads the team, represents us all from a toughness and a leadership standpoint the way we want.
Also, I was just curious, do you call games up top or on the field?
I know I have a real good sense of where I'll be, but we still have a few weeks before we have to, make a final decision on that.
Carson Golker, I mean, with all the different places you can put him at, how do you best utilize a player like that when you can have him go run a route, you can throw the ball, or you can run it as well?
Yeah, well, first we just don't tell anybody how we're going to use them. That's probably the best way to do that. But for any player where they have, some versatility, I think it's finding the things they do best, making them tough to defend, but still not overloading them where they don't get good at the things you're going to ask them to do. But certainly Golk's got, versatility. You mentioned Jaden earlier. Certainly he has a different skill set than some other guys, with the different things that he's able to do. So, but try not to tell anybody, specifics on a kid like Golk. But certainly he's got talent and ability.
How fun is it, I guess, for you as an offensive coordinator to have a
fun? We're having fun every day. We just, we love what we do, and how do we put the players in the best position to be successful? It's like I said earlier, I love football, I love coaching, so that's certainly part of the job that we all enjoy.
How does the 5-for-5, no red shirt, from a play caller standpoint, get those younger guys integrated? I mean, is it kind of like having a little extra in the toolbox, or like? I
think that's a great question. That's a really good question. I think the thing, like in my career, that has always been tricky is you have to do what's best for the team, and you're trying to do what's best for the individual relative to their eligibility. And so I think the great thing is that you can just continue to develop them without putting a ceiling on, like, can you get them in, or when do you have to, and those types of things, because you just don't know what, the season is going to bring, for you. And so for those guys to be able to, there were times where there's guys that definitely were, maybe they're 1 or 2, but they were a 2.5, but it's like we got to redshirt them. And so you can't even let them get in a game ever. You can't even get them in on special teams for a few snaps. And so that part's good. You don't have to worry about that. You know that if they help you win, put them in the game, and you're not concerned about, losing a year for a kid for 10 snaps, for 1 week, but then you can't play him the rest of the time. And so that part you don't have to be concerned with. And I think for the health of your team, your ability to play all the players throughout the year, it just helps you withstand just the natural bumps and bruises you'll encounter throughout the season.
As a former quarterback, can you feel like the confidence level in your offense when you need to go get a yard on the ground? Everybody knows you're probably going to run. When you can do that, is it not something that this program has done really well in recent years? And not asking you to look back, but just the feeling of, all right, everybody knows what we're going to do, and we're just going to be the more physical team and get the yards that we need.
Yeah, we'll be in full pass tomorrow, so that'd be a great time. You could ask me after practice, So there's a lot of factors that go into it. Certainly it starts up front, but the runner's got to run through people also. So we have guys that are capable. Yeah, I have no concern about that. And now we got to do it. We got to coach it, and we got to get the guys to execute and do it. But we understand the challenges those situations and what that does for your team and the mindset and the mentality and why that's important. And so the players will understand that as well. Yeah.
Everybody good?
Good.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Yep. See ya.
Thank you.